My first property, I think the estate agent put in a tenant who ended up being a drug addict.
Whoa.
Yeah, so and like he completely stuffed up the property, but fortunately he disappeared the one night and I got my property back. But in hindsight, I can look at it and say, okay, logically this is what I learned and etc. etc. But at the time it was all one big blur.
So your first property, your first tenant was a drug addict?
Yeah, it was. He was.
What's the worst that happened in there?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, no. So for some reason I had a sofa in the property. I don't know why I had a second-hand sofa, and he used it as a urinal. Like there was a senior finance person that I got on board, and he was running his own business on the side, which in principle wasn't the end of the world for me, but it's more the fact he didn't tell me. He didn't seem to be engaged with the function that he was employed to do, and then I just had to cut it loose. So I'm quite quick at cutting loose when I have to, and I do that. And I don't do that. I'm not saying I do that ruthlessly, but I celebrate those that work well and are working within our value system, and those that don't, I then deal with it accordingly. The property market's going through a major challenge at the moment. I think from asset value perspective, properties are not going up much in value as much as we would like. And I think property services providing value to asset owners or property owners, whether it's through rental management, property management, sexual title management, property sales, those are all services that are needed to be done professionally. And I think there's maybe a lack of professionalism in the industry. I'd rather have less assets and be married than have a big business portfolio. So I know this is not really answering your question directly, but for me, there's many of these so-called wealthy people that we know about that are in the press that I don't have a very strong opinion about, because I don't think they're successful. They can't keep a marriage together. Their children don't like them. So, what about the numbers? So for me, are my kids still liking me? And is my wife still married? And if it means I'm a little poorer, well then so be it. But from an asset perspective, how big is, I've got an agent friend of mine who's got a little agency of him and 2 agents. He's doing phenomenally well. Cash flow wise, he's doing phenomenally well. He's got a little niche. He can go surf. He's in Cape Town. He can go surfing whenever he wants to. His level of success is he's got the flexibility. He's maybe not earning as much as he would like, or ideally like, but he's got the flexibility. He's got systems. He can go surfing when the surf's up. Is that success? You know what I'm saying? Is that I can? I've got choices. So maybe I've got a bigger portfolio, but I've got less choices. I might be slave to my portfolio. Maybe I've got a 100-unit portfolio, but then I've got freedom in life. Mm-hmm.
Hello everyone. Welcome on another very beautiful episode. We're sitting down with a very special guest that's close to my heart because of what he has done for the industry in South Africa. Where did you grow up and how was your childhood?
I grew up in Cape Town.
Okay.
I had a very privileged background to have loving parents, loving family. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Ronnebosch, went to a great school, Ronnebosch. Mm-hmm. And then I used to work for my dad's company every holiday, which was a great experience. So from a young age into business. And then straight after school, I started working for my dad's company, which is a labeling and packaging company.
Okay.
And then I studied part-time. I did a marketing management diploma and a business management diploma. But I was very privileged with my parents to be able to travel a lot. I worked for my dad for 10 years, just under 10 years. And we did a lot of overseas trips, for business trips, whether it's Hong Kong or Taiwan, because we did children's stickers. So we used to go to different exhibitions in Europe. And I think I learned a lot from that in the School of Life. Yeah. I don't have a degree, but I learned a lot in the School of Life, which is a great privilege.
Wow, yeah. That's very fascinating. You are a man who has achieved a lot. Personally, so far, you are a legend in the industry so far. I guess from now on, you're just going to have to be a god. There's nothing more than that. Yeah. It's very interesting to hear that you learned a lot from the School of Life. You didn't get a degree. How did that happen?
So I wasn't given the opportunity of going to university, mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think one learns a lot through mentorship. Mm-hmm. So I lived at home for the first 8 years after school, And every in mealtime was like a board meeting with my dad, learning a lot about HR and marketing and staff issues and so forth. And I just read a lot of books. And so, I think as long as one's got a curious mind and a learning attitude, I think one can learn a lot, and one doesn't need a degree. I think a degree, or especially a finance degree, is super useful, and that's something I do lack. But then I use people around me to give me that knowledge. I think as we grow and develop, especially when we're young, I think it's good to get all the input and not let it define us. So if I'm studying to become an architect, maybe I will become an architect one day, but maybe it should give me the skills that I can do something with that skills as opposed to being defined by what I study.
Okay, I see. I really like that. What's the best thing you learned from your father's mentorship?
Doing the right thing. I think my dad's my best ever business mentor. I learned the value of hard work, the value of perseverance, the value of righteousness, doing the right thing, the value of caring for people, the people being the most important thing. And that's, I think those are the, and when one's got those basic principles of character, I think success then follows in the long term. My dad was never one to go for the quick buck. He's ended up having a successful business, but that was never the goal. The goal was to serve those that are in the team, to put food on the table and to make a difference to clients.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hectic, man. So now, with that knowledge that you gained from the dinner table with your dad, what's that one thing you're going to pass on to your kids now?
I think the value of, I think it's two main things: the value of hard work and consistency, and I think doing the right thing, doing the right thing, a sense of righteousness, being honest, I think in this environment that we operate in, I think that's quite a challenge. But I think that's always going to call out to me is always do the right thing, even if it's at a cost to yourself.
Wow. Yo, that's hectic. Doing the right thing at your own cost.
Yeah.
Wow,
Absolutely.
That's very hectic for business people to do nowadays, you know?
Yeah, I think the principle, I think it's very critical. I think we've got to make decisions about doing the right thing for the benefit of our clients and our staff, first and foremost. If that's at a cost to myself, then so be it. But it shouldn't be first and foremost only for my own good. I think the good should be for those around us first. It doesn't mean that we don't care about ourselves, but I think we're going to look at others. And then also a question of ethics and honesty is first have a sense of a character and a determination to do the right thing, even if it might cost myself. So I don't make a decision because it's going to benefit myself or not. I make a decision based on what is the right thing to do, which may be the best thing for myself, but not necessarily so.
I see what you mean. Very interesting. Going back to your mentorship, you spoke about reading a lot. Let's start with your first top 3 best books of all time.
Okay, I would say the Bible. so that's a foundation for all philosophy. The second thing is some other books would be that made a big difference would be Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Wow.
I think it's not a particularly well-written book, but I think it's me and myself being an author, but I think the content and the message is just phenomenal, and there's a reason why it's landed so well. Life-changing book. Man's Search for Meaning.
Wow. Okay.
By what is the author? He's the guy from the Jewish guys, the Holocaust.
Yeah, no, about him.
So those are 3 I can think of at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Why did you pick Men's Search for Meaning as part of your top 3?
I think it's a good question. I think when I read it in my 20s, it was a question of finding myself, knowing. I think build a question of the attitude of now having working like the benefit for others, having some kind of meaning. I think was, for me, it's easy. I'm flowing in it now. But it was developed in my 20s when I read books like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then what made you get into real estate and property?
Look, I kind of fell into it, really. I mean, if you had said to me in my early 20s, I'm going to become a real estate agent, I would have thought that's not even my top million on the list. I think what happened was, I think two things is that I bought my first property in 98, 99, 1998, 99. And then I felt like I worked for my dad for 10 years, but all my dad's brothers and sisters own their own businesses. And ultimately, I think I wanted to do my own thing, even though I was great, enjoyed my dad's company. And then I think real estate just was the thing to do. I thought, well, a friend of mine, we were having a discussion. I thought, well, let's start something in real estate. So I kind of fell into it in a way.
Wow, so it was a calling.
I guess in hindsight, it was, yeah.
Okay, I see what you mean. So now, with your first property, how was it?
Yeah, it was a stuff up, eh? Yes, I bought my first property, and I think the principle is you've got to get into it, right? Mm-hmm. But to get into something and to expect, like your first business, you can't expect like it's going to be a major success overnight and it's all going to be great. Mm-hmm. I think the main thing is to get into it, and as you into it, you learn from it. So my first property, I think the estate agent put in a tenant who ended up being a drug addict.
Whoa.
Yeah, so and like he completely stuffed up the property, but fortunately he disappeared the one night and I got my property back. But in hindsight, I can look at it and say, okay, logically, this is what I learned, and et cetera, et cetera. But at the time, it was all one big blur.
So your first property, your first tenant was a drug addict?
Yeah, it was. He was.
What's the worst that happened in there? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, no. So, for some reason, I had a sofa in the property. I don't know why I had a second-hand sofa, and he used it as a urinal. And then for some reason he didn't quite know where the toilet was, so the entire kind of bathroom was a bit of a show. But you learn from that, and now since then you realize that property management is crucial in the long-term investment success of a property. But you kind of learn these lessons through circumstances.
Yes, that's so very true.
Yeah.
So then what made you improve your property management skills?
Just by experience. So there's two things. Is what's a better experience for your landlords and tenants, and how can you do it more effectively and efficiently? So the first property I managed, it took me like a week to manage the one property. I mean, we were doing silly things. We didn't know how to do inspections. I didn't know what I was doing, and I don't think the tenant and landlord had a particularly good experience.
Oh, wow.
So the two things I always look at is what is the experience of the client and how do we improve on that? And second of all, how do we do that more efficiently? So it's not a question of, I think both are important, because if you're just doing a better experience, well, then you're not going to make any money. So you need to do it in such a way that you're going to make money as well.
Oh, I see what
and
you
build
mean.
systems around that so that you can make more money.
Okay. So when you were developing your own systems, was there anybody in the industry that you could use as reference?
No, I can't say that. I mean, I think the property management software and everything in the last 5 years, last 20 years, it's dramatically improved. No, I can't say there's anyone particularly in South Africa. I mean, there's a couple of guys like Will Rawson and the guys I used to speak to, but no one in particular. I had to kind of make my own way through.
Hectic.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that played out well for you, or it was a disadvantage that slowed you down?
No, look, I mean, I think I'm very much to learn from others, and a lot of what I've learned over the years is through learning, being mentored by books and by other folk. I think it's about advantages and disadvantages. Now I've got a system which works for us. Okay. So no, I don't think it was a disadvantage or advantage. Yeah.
Okay. Talking about books, since you're an author, how many books do you read per year?
I read anything from 20 to 30 books a year.
20 books a year. You do know we have 12 months.
So yeah, I mean, one gets better and quicker at reading books over time. Mm-hmm. I did a speed reading course many years ago.
Wow.
But I think one gets better at it over time. And there's probably, probably one could be more effective reading, say, 10 books more effectively. Mm-hmm. I just tend to read volume and then glean information from that over a period of time. Hopefully it kind of influences me over time. As John Maxwell said many years ago, the difference between what you are now and in 5 years' time is the people you meet and the books you read. So I think it's important. So I think learning from people is important, and learning from books. So you're learning from the top people in the world through their books. But I think it's a habit, eh?
Yeah.
It's a habit. It's an intentionality. And I think even if you're not reading anything at the moment, reading one book in a year is good. It's not a question of a volume. Are you doing something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, man, I read your book. It changed the way I manage my own properties. It escalated and shot me up, you know.
Yeah.
Because I know how to do inspections now. I know how to screen my tenant. My favorite chapter in the book is chapter 17, as I showed you. It helped me build systems to manage properties.
Yes.
And that made me see what's going on in the property and what I'm doing, right? So in a nutshell, I agree with you. Reading books does help, especially reading The Expert Landlord.
Yeah.
So now you also talked about people. What are your top 3 quality people that you've met that influence you?
Yeah, look, in so many different areas. So, you know, I've had a pastor or two that's been very fathering to me, and there's a one of my mentors in Cape Town, Sean Carlisle, who's just he got me through a particular season. You know, my parents have been phenomenal. I've got 4 brothers, and so they're all great. And I've got an identical twin brother. So there's actually 2 of me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So and then so many different folk. I mean, during the many of my team members over the time, some more than others. I think I appreciate people for their season. Some people I get to know over my lifetime, and some people are there for a season and made a significant difference. I was actually just talking to my ex-assistant this morning. She was just doing some final handover things. She got a great opportunity. She was only with us with me for a year, but in that year she made a critical difference in that season. So I think I try and not find one person that's going to solve or help me with all my challenges. I don't put that pressure on anyone. But if there's a particular season I'm going through in a particular area I'm needing help with, then I get that mentorship from that person.
Wow, amazing. While we're still on the topic of people, after I read your book, at the end you give a huge shout out to your wife and family. And when we came in here, we met your wife. Even your previous interviews, you speak a lot about your wife, and it made me realize that you're actually privileged. You have it all, right? You have lovely family, you have a business, you have kids, but I feel like your wife is important. Or am I wrong or right?
No, I mean I couldn't do it without her.
Yeah, because she even gave you the money to buy the other properties.
No, so she look, I only got married quite late, and she got married quite late. I was 30. Well, I guess that's not late nowadays, but she's 5 years older, so she was just 35 when we got married. But I think it was worth waiting for. She was my first real girlfriend. And within 9 months, I got married. So in my 20s, I tended to work on myself, and I had a strong vision of the kind of woman I wanted to marry. But it did mean that I had to act in a particular way to deserve that kind of woman. You know, you get what you attract. You attract what you get. You are. So you get what you are. So if one's going to be irresponsible and a player, one's not necessarily going to find that woman of character that one wants. So I worked a lot on myself as to being the right person to then attract the right person. And then now I'm living the dream, what I had in my 20s. Is the dream all pleasant and kind of a bed of roses? No, it's not. Life is a major challenge. But what makes it a lot better is the fact that I got a wife who is 100% supportive of me, my biggest fan. She loves me in spite of me, and you know, and it's a massive kudos to know that I can come home. Or, you know, I work from home, but I mean, I come home knowing that I can be out here, I can make a complete fool of myself, but when I come home, I've got a wife that loves me no matter what. Wow. And that takes away a lot of pressure, because I don't feel like I have to prove myself to the world, because I'm already loved, like selflessly already. And then obviously it's an opportunity for me to serve and love someone unconditionally as well. It is a symbiotic relationship, but it's very special. And I'm incredibly privileged to be living the dream with. I think I can die happy.
As I said, you already won, man.
Yeah.
You've already won. How did you guys meet each other?
We met each other at a business course that we both went on about 18 years ago. We were in a business academy course. It's like a very kind of low-key course. It was kind of linked to the church we were at. And we were both put on a business. At the end, you have to do like a business plan. And we were both put in the same group. She was a cheese dog because she wasn't being put with her friends, but she was put with me, and we ended up interacting a lot. And then shortly afterwards, I asked her out.
Wow.
She actually asked me to her cousin's 40th birthday party. And that evening, I knew I'd closed the deal then if she had asked me, because she didn't need to ask anyone. And so she asked me, and I thought, well, okay, that's it. Yeah.
Wow.
And then 9 months later, we were married.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yo, that's beautiful. How long have you guys been married for?
17 and a half years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got married after 9 months.
Yeah. No, it's good. So it's not like we knew each other for friends. So pretty much, I knew her for a few months, asked her out, and then 9.5 months later, we were married. If you know it's the right person, why wait?
Exactly. Yeah, I see, man.
And then we just moved in together when we got married, and then it's a steep learning curve.
Wow.
You learn to. I think marriage is a wonderful thing because it's a mirror to oneself.
Yes.
Because who you are is reflected back to you.
Nice.
And so I had to. I learned that I wasn't always the most pleasant person, and so I had to. Marriage is a good thing about building character and building personality.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so deep. How does she feel about you in the real estate game?
Yeah, no, she's fine. I mean, I think she's very supportive, and her main thing is, am I happy? Am I living in my calling? Am I doing what I'm called to do? And if I'm doing that, and then I'm looking after the family, then she's super happy.
Nice.
She's incredibly generous from that perspective. She's always asking how I am and how am I doing, and she will fight tooth and nail for me as well. So if there's anyone in the industry or any one of my staff members that are causing me hassles, if she had a choice, she'll be out there fighting for me. So she's a real kind of tigress. You don't want to mess with her. Don't mess with me, otherwise you're going to mess with her.
Yeah, you're gonna get it.
That's a precious thing to have. To know that between the two of us, we're fighting for each other.
Nice.
It's very powerful because it's not me that you're seeing here. It's me and her together. And that's a powerful thing.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's also a powerful thing to say, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, what do you think is the one thing that she did or she's doing that helped you become who you are in the real estate game?
She accepts me for who I am, and she loves me for who I am, which means that I can do interviews or I can be in the industry and I can mess up, but it doesn't matter.
Wow.
The most important person and the other people around me already know who I am. So they're not judging me. If someone out there is judging me, so what?
Wow, that's deep, man. So you said your wife is one of the key people in your life. From there, how do you get to meet more key people? In other words, how do you network?
I think you've got to be out there. I think first of all, knowing where one's going. What is my vision? Number two is, what is the kind of value I can add others? Number three is just to take any opportunity to be networking where one can. So if I'm invited to an event or I could go to an event, I think it's a question of just going. And in that network, in the beginning, you might not feel like one's getting anywhere, but over a period of time, one starts building relationships. So let's say I'm going to a South African Property Investor Network event.
Okay.
The first time I go there, I might not know anyone. I go there a second time and I say, oh no, I saw you last time, how's it going?
Yeah.
The third time you meet the person, on the third event, you're going to be a lot more deeper. You can say, okay, how are things going? And they're going to ask you how you're going, and maybe they're going to introduce you to your friend next door. So I think just pitching up really helps. And I think being generous to others. And I think you're incredibly good at it. I mean, is asking deep questions about the other person and so forth. Is showing interest in others. That's really helpful.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. As we are generous to others, we get the generosity back to us.
I see what you mean. You're extremely spiritual. Honest, when I read the book, I didn't think you'd be that spiritual.
Yeah.
But meeting you, oh, you are very spiritual, man. Wow. Does that help you in being in this real estate industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's critical. I mean, my faith is critical to who I am, and it's critical to my longevity. It's critical to getting me back into the game. Because if I'm only going to live on my own personal success and my own personal, then I'm going to, because the last 5 years, for example, I've seen tremendous success and I've seen tremendous failure. And if I was only based on that, then I probably wouldn't have continued. But if I'm based on a greater value, something greater than myself, then my own personal material success or failure is not nearly as important.
Oh, wow.
It's the vision about helping others. It's a vision about keeping going. That's more important.
Wow, hectic, man. Speaking about you yourself, what are your daily routines that keep you going and that get things done?
Look, I have a fairly, the routine is fairly consistent. I run 5 days a week, typically 2 days on the weekend and 3 days during the week. So Mondays and Fridays I don't run. Monday mornings I quite often join one of my coaches' prayer meetings that they have. On Tuesday mornings and Friday mornings as a men's group, I join online at 8 o'clock. I'm typically running before that. Sometimes I'll take the kids to school.
Okay.
I typically try and have a quiet time, my own spiritual time, reading the Bible or prayer, and then I get on with my day. During the day, it's typically meetings. During the on running, I'm listening to podcasts or I'm thinking about a lot of stuff. It's a way of me processing. I typically run on my own, not with people. And then it's meetings and getting stuff done. In the evenings, I'm typically spending time with the family. I watch a bit of TV. Sometimes I go to a church connect group.
Okay.
Maybe do some work.
I see.
That's pretty much it. We have fairly insular life. My weekends are fairly easygoing. I might go for a long run. Sunday mornings go to church, and then otherwise just relax.
Okay. You have a cool life, man.
And on Sunday evenings, I'm typically spending an hour or two preparing the week.
Yeah.
I've got an app on my phone which has got all my actions, and then I move those around, up and down. I've also got a flip file which has got my what I call I forget now what I call it, but it's got my personal vision, my purpose statement, my goals for the next 3 months, my goals for the next 2 years, 5 years, and I often go through that every day.
Oh, so you go through, so basically your vision board is a vision flip file.
Yes, yeah.
And then it's divided into yearly goals, monthly goals, and weekly goals.
Yeah.
And you go through it on a daily basis. Okay, so you break it down from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you go through it on a daily basis, then that's where you get to have your daily routines.
Yes.
You get to know, I'm doing this, and that, and that.
It's not quite as perfect as that, but what for me, it's more the mindset of, I don't like doing anything today which is not part of the bigger picture. So if I'm running today, it's probably because I want to do a 100-mile race in a year's time.
Okay.
If I'm spending time with my family or I'm going on a date night, it's as much as I want to enjoy my time with my wife, which is my best time, but it's also because my biggest vision is that at the age of 80, we're walking hand in hand down a beach together. So what am I doing today, which is going to help me achieve my biggest vision?
Yeah,
If I still want to have my spiritual life and love my Lord for the rest of my life, what am I doing today, which is adding to that?
Yeah,
If I want my children to like me, one of my biggest visions in the next 20, 30 years is that I want my children to want to relate with me. What am I doing today, which is going to help sow the seeds for that? So often, if we want to build the vision for the business, what am I doing today, which is going to help grow the business to the vision I've got for the next 5 years? So I don't like doing stuff which is not relevant to the longer term vision.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. Is there anything long term in your vision that you also like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think my three main things is still having my faith. Number 2 is my wife is still married to me. And number 3 is that my children like me. That's in very basic terms what my 3 main things are. Everything else is details. So if we got a business which is all over Africa, bonus. If I'm giving $1 million a month into Christian ministry, that's a bonus. Those are all part of the vision. But if the top three aren't done, well, then the other things aren't important. So there's lots of visions on the business growing, certain kind of personal wealth goals and those kind of things. I do have those, and I do drive towards them. But I'm not going to be. My success is not going to be defined by that.
Okay.
It's easy to say. It's delivered is a different story, but I'm really not going to be defined if I'm. I was actually thinking, relatively speaking, the other day. Let's say I want to give $1 million into a fund every month. Well, that's great. There's plenty of guys like Bill Gates has just given $500 million last year. So anything I give or anything I do is going to be small in relation to anyone else anyway. So it's going to be a drop in the ocean. So me defining myself about some small thing I think is irrelevant, because it's in the bigger scheme of things, it's not much anyway.
Oh wow, man!
but to that person next door, it might be worth something.
Yeah,
that's what counts.
Wow, meeting you is mind blowing. I didn't expect you to be this type of person, but you're bigger than what I thought you were. You talked about expanding the business into Africa. You're talking about the real estate business. Yeah, look, one of my personal goals is to visit every country in Africa. I don't know how safe that is nowadays, but maybe we'll try. But I would like to be be operating in many countries in Africa, but it's mainly a personal kind of goal thing. How it's done, whether it's through real estate or anything else, I'm not sure. Okay.
I think it'd be nice to operate. I had the goal. Sometimes many years ago, there was an article in the Time magazine which had the top 10 or 20 urban areas for the next 20 years in the map on Time magazine. So I actually printed it out and I put it on my wall, saying, imagine, because all those big urban areas are going to need property services, right? That's obvious. So I thought, imagine us having a business in each of those big urban areas. So I kind of imagine that. If it happens, it's great. If it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world.
Okay, so you haven't done any feasibility study or looked for gaps in Africa?
There have been conversations with one or two guys I've spoken about, but I think the South African market, Johannesburg alone, for example, is a massive market. So to try and operate in a small town in the rest of Africa when we haven't taken over South Africa yet, it's not worth a feasibility study. But if an opportunity were to arise, I would pursue it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically, you're saying Joburg still has gaps and opportunities to innovate in the real estate industry.
No, Joburg is massive.
Really?
Joburg is one of the main, if not the main, urban center in Africa.
Okay.
That's what I love about Joburg, is that you feel like you're a big international city. I've been to London, Paris, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, Boston, and Joburg is no different to those cities. It's a big international city. A lot of exciting things happening here. It's a pretty broken city, but there's lots of opportunities here. So I think there's lots to be done in Joburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, speaking about Joburg, you grew up in Cape Town and you've done business here. You've lived here. You've lived there. How do you feel about the two?
Yeah, look, we love Joburg. My family loves Joburg. It's got a great energy and to it. I like the realness of it. I think this is proper Africa, and I mean that in the most positive sense.
Yes.
Cape Town, in the area I grew up in, is not really Africa. It's not really, and it's beautiful. And Cape Town is the most beautiful city in the world. And I've been to many cities. It really is absolutely stunning, but it's not real life, And sometimes, my main criteria is not comfort. So I'm not here. So my main vision of life isn't the white picket fence and a happy family and only comfort. I enjoy comfort, but it's my main thing is what am I obedient to be doing? What's my calling, and I'm obedient to that. And Cape Town, it's wonderful and absolutely amazing, and it's great to live there. But one doesn't have to live there. One can visit. I think Joburg, people make decisions a lot quicker. You can get customers quicker. You can lose customers easier.
Yeah.
In Cape Town, it takes longer to close deals. It's more difficult to lose deals, but it's more difficult to close deals. And if you're not well connected in Cape Town, it's not as easy. Joburg, it's easier to make things happen, I think.
Yeah.
And I like the realness of Joburg. It's a lot more cosmopolitan. You come to Joburg to do business, to make things happen. You go to Cape Town because you want a lifestyle. And I don't think there's a right or wrong with it, but I think there's different seasons in life. And my season in life for the last 9 years in Johannesburg is when you want to make things happen. It's been way better for me than just staying in Cape Town.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hectic. We were in Cape Town last week, and a lot of people are saying what you're saying also, especially with the speed.
Yeah.
Some people say, hey, Cape Town is slow. Joburg is faster. There's more business in Joburg.
Yeah.
There's lifestyle in Cape Town. So what you're saying is very interesting, and a lot of people have the same sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, but Joburg's amazing. I mean, I know it's messy. I know it's, you know, it's ugly, but it's beauty in that ugliness, I think. Yeah, I love it. I love it. You know,
hey, Joburgers kill me.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Joburgers love Joburg.
Yeah.
They really love their Jersey.
No, yeah,
you can't take that
complain,
away.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The life and energy here is just amazing. It's just, yeah, you can't compare.
Okay. So now, how do you manage businesses in both Cape Town and Joburg? Because I feel like the distance is massive.
Yeah, look, it is a challenge. When you're operating two cities, it's not twice as complicated. It's like 20 times or 50 times as complicated. I think what really helped from a mindset perspective, first of all, it didn't overawe me from a mind perspective because my dad ran a business in multiple cities. And I used to, when I was with my dad's company, used to travel across many cities all the time. So I think that's a big thing, is to get over the mindset and that being a barrier and that it isn't possible. So I came in with the mindset that it is possible. There's very few agencies like ourselves that are operating across two cities. Typically in the real estate, it's franchises, and which those are individual businesses. So there's very few of us that are, as a single company, operating across two cities. So we are fairly unique. It has been a challenge, but I've had really good team members in Cape Town. So Cape Town, in many respects, has kind of operated itself in many respects. I give direction, and I'm often in key account meetings and so forth. But really, I had some really good team members to run it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that's made the critical difference. And these team members, their loyalty and their commitment has been more important than necessarily their expertise. And it's not that they haven't had the expertise, but I think one can have a superhero team member, but you can't really trust them. I mean, at many times, 80-90% of my asset is in Cape Town, and yet I'm in Johannesburg, and yet I'm allowing people to make decisions for the best, for basically for my best interest, and I'm relying on them to make those decisions.
Wow.
Which has obviously been trust from my perspective, but they've earned that trust.
Wow, that's hectic. Man, you're really lucky, especially with people around you. So you have so much trust in your staff. How do you go about getting good quality staff members?
Yeah, I mean, that's an age-old question. I mean, if I knew that answer that quickly, I would be a lot more successful. I think first of all, knowing one's own value system. What is having a strong sense, because for me, righteousness and honesty and transparency and respect is critical in my value system. And I'm not saying I live it out that well every day, but it is strong in my value system. I expect that from others. And when someone does not live that, I quickly move them on, or I quickly part ways. I've got a strong thing is that if there's not a correlation of values, then there's a parting of ways over time, whether one likes it or not. So team members that don't correlate with one's values. And that could be good or bad values. So because I run a business in a particular way, I trust others to do that too. Yeah.
I see what you mean. So what's the worst that had happened in terms of you parting with someone who was not working out?
There was a senior finance person that I got on board, and he was running his own business on the side, which in principle wasn't the end of the world for me, but it's more the fact he didn't tell me. He didn't seem to be engaged with the function that he was employed to do. And then I just had to cut it loose. So I'm quite quick at cutting loose when I have to. And I do that, and I don't do that, I'm not saying I do that ruthlessly, but I celebrate those that work well and are working within our value system. And those that don't, I then deal with it accordingly, and I'm not scared to engage with that situation.
Okay, I see what you mean. So what's the best example of an employee who worked well with you?
Yeah, I mean, I had just one of my superheroes was someone called Carmen, who started with us 15 years ago. And between herself and the business with being very, very new and herself not having any money, I had to actually go to her house for the interview. She had no money for petrol. And so she started as an estate agent, then she helped a bit with accounting, and she helped as a rental agent. And she was earning pretty much nothing in the beginning. And then she ended up, when I came to Joburg, she then ran Cape Town. And then shortly after that, when I could write the book, because she was running the business nationally. At one stage, we had 70 staff across 2 cities. All staff reported to her, and she was earning a ridiculous salary. And first time she ever went in an airplane, or in fact the second time, was when she came to Joburg to manage the Cape Joburg team. And she used to drive around Joburg, and for her to come from like the Cape Flats in Cape Town, with earning almost nothing, to then running a medium-sized business was a phenomenal achievement for her. And it's someone I could rely and put my trust in. And she's now gone off on her own. She's now got her own real estate agency. She had a dream 15 years ago, or 20 years, when I first met her 16, 17 years ago. She ultimately wanted to be principal of her own agency. And I helped her achieve that. And she's now doing that, and she does all our training. So all the estate agency training, she does all that for us. You know, the NQF level 4 and 5 training. So she was doing it in the chorus, and now she does that externally for the market, for the industry. And so, I mean, and you know, her kids came through decent schools now purely because of where she came from and now where she is now. And I think we changed her, we gave her multiple wealth in one generation. But she deserved it because she was incredibly courageous and competent in the job that she did with us.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. I wonder what made you decide, okay, this person does not want to come to the interview. It's their loss. I'm going to get a new staff member, and you deciding, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually go to this person's house to give them an interview. Who started this thing? Was it her or you?
I can't remember. It's too long ago, and the way we ran businesses then was very different to now. I don't think I'll do it now necessarily. But I think maybe I was desperate. Yeah, I think probably that. There's different seasons, you know, and there's certain ways I did things 15 years ago to what I do it now is different. But I'm quite happy. I'm not arrogant enough to know that if I'm after someone or I think someone should do it, I will go wherever I need to go. I don't mind. I will stay in the cheapest places. I will stay in the most expensive places. I'll enjoy both, you know.
Wow. Yeah. So you're a real estate mogul and you've made real estate moguls. How do you think a person who's watching this can become a real estate mogul? What should they do?
I think they need to first of all have the drive and the vision and the passion for real estate. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to have the endurance to get through. Because it is a difficult path, very challenging path. If you're going to start off as an estate agent, you're going to work on commission only. And if you're not a self-starter, you're not going to be able to do that. You know, keep it going. So I think the passion is super important, the interest, and you must be. I don't mean like. So some of the team members that we got on recently are doing their own research. They're making it happen themselves. They're using me as a resource and as a support, as opposed to me as being their answer. So they, because you've got your self-drivenness, they are using the resources around them to help them go forward, as opposed to me driving them. I'm the moon to the sun. I'm not the sun to the moon. So I don't provide the energy. They provide the energy, and I help them along the way.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Hectic, man. That's very special. So now, with that being said, someone who wants to be a real estate mogul and has the vision, but they don't know what problems to solve, what do you think are the gaps in the market right now, or problems that need to be solved from your experience?
Yeah, that's a great way of asking it. I think people that have money don't have the time.
Okay.
Because typically those without the money might have a bit more time. So if we can offer our time in exchange for value, exchange for money. So, for example, I might know some people that don't have the time, but I might be able to find property deals for them because I've got time to do the research, etc. Then that's a way of getting into the market, is by offering time in exchange for money. But I think look, the property market's going through a major challenge at the moment. I think from asset value perspective, properties are not going up much in value as much as we would like. And I think property services providing value to asset owners or property owners, whether it's through rental management, property management, sexual title management, property sales, those are all services that are needed to be done professionally. And I think there's maybe a lack of professionalism in the industry. And that's not necessarily a criticism, because the industry is tough for that. But I think to have a level of care and professionalism, I think is going to close a gap, meet the needs of many clients.
I like what you're saying, because some other person also asked me about the gaps in the market, and I told them about general contractors. I don't know, how do you feel about the professionalism of general contractors in this industry?
Yeah, look, they come and go. It's the word is inconsistency, because you can get a great contractor today, and he's not a great contractor tomorrow, unfortunately, or vice versa. And that's not necessarily always the fault of the contractor, because people become victims of their own success. So now I'm a really good contractor, and now I get too much work, and now I don't know how to handle that. Because, like, as a real estate agent, I could have stayed on my own, but what I ended up doing was doing a fist system. So if I'm a contractor, am I building teams of contractors to do the work for me? Because now I'm attracting the work, but some guys don't want to build the teams, which is fine. I totally respect it. But then they're too busy to provide the service, consistent service. So, yeah, I think that's what creates some of the inconsistency. And I think some contractors just don't have the character to have that consistency.
Okay, so the other thing is, you said they're victims of their own success because they can't build teams and whatnot. It goes back to leadership. What makes you a good leader?
Well, I mean, it's for others to judge whether I'm a good leader or not. So, if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, I were a good leader, well, then I think self-awareness is important, knowing oneself, having and that self-awareness should lead to humility, because I back my strengths, but I also know that I'm not perfect, and so yeah, sense of humility, a strong character, having strong principles. So character and principles and values, knowing what those are, living those out and being true to that.
Okay.
And strong character and strong values would obviously include having a love for others, having a care for others. Is not just about myself. So it's not me and my vision, as important as it is, but I have that vision, but I'm really living it out by serving others.
Okay, I like what you say. So, is there anything that you do to maintain that list, or something that you can advise the people to do to maintain that list?
The sense of accountability. So, like, for example, I'm not the greatest at finances, right?
Okay.
So I've got a bunch of, my wife who's a finance person, I've got an external accountant, I've got my own accountant. I'm open to hearing and actively wanting them to have their opinion. So where I feel I'm weak at, I'm accountable. So I've got one or two friends of mine that will speak deeply to me very harshly if I cross the line, for example, in various things. So I think having a strong accountability and being and being open to it, not saying, well, so I think one has to have humility and be open to people talking to you.
Oh, okay.
Having a sense of accountability in certain areas. And also, I think this is where the self-awareness and self-esteem comes in. If my wife were to say something to me, it's not because she doesn't love me, it's because she wants the best for me. Okay. And I must be open to hearing what she's got to say to improve me. Am I open to that?
Okay, that's very beautiful. As you said, you work with a lot of people. They help you achieve certain things. Working with a lot of people comes with negotiations. How do you approach negotiations?
I think a win-win approach. And then for me, it's risk management. A lot of my job is risk management. So if if I compromise here, what is the risk to myself and the business and to my team? If I compromise with a client here, what's the cost? I've actually just had a call now where it's quite an expensive mistake that some of our admin team have just made. It's going to cost me 10 grand probably. So I need to say, there's a particular way I do it in context of that particular client. Do I fight for that or not? If it's a particular kind of client, I do. If it's not a particular client, I will probably carry that cost over a period of time. So for me, it's risk management. What's the benefit and disadvantage? And and another thing I look at is something called BATNA. There's a book called Getting Past No. I forget now who the author is. And he talks about the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. What's my walk away? If this deal doesn't happen, what's the biggest cost to me? Am I prepared to do that? So there's a line in the sand which I'm not prepared to cross, because the cost to me of walking away from it is less than the cost to me of taking that deal.
I see what you mean. So basically it goes back to risk management.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay, I hear you. So now with the technology coming through, with the fourth industrial revolution taking over and still coming, how do you feel it's gonna impact your business?
Look, I mean, I was pretty freaked out about it a few years ago to say, look, it's going to fundamentally disrupt our business. And I'm not saying it won't in the future, but I think what I'm now doing, prop tech and these kind of things, I think it's going to, I think we need to keep in touch with it. Otherwise, others taking on prop tech will outcompete us. I think it's there to help with efficiencies and help with customer service, as opposed to fundamentally taking away the need for people. You understand what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, 100%.
So how does technology complement our business and make us more effective and give us better customer service? And that's the way I approach it, as opposed to feeling like, oh, this is going to disrupt my business and ruin my business.
So it's about perspective.
Yeah, it's not a threat, it's an opportunity to fine-tune my business, as opposed to the fact that I'm going to have to just change everything. Now, I'm not saying there's certain technologies that come in that means I need to redo my systems on that particular area. But what I find with PropTech, which is interesting, there's not one technology which is going to solve all the problems. It's maybe an inspection software here that's going to help with inspections. It's going to be this banking app which is going to help with our tenants making an easier payment. It's bits and bobs that happen along the way. It's not one big force that's going to take over our business. That helps me a lot, encourages me a lot to know that I don't have to feel too freaked about it. I must just be open to the individual niches that are going to help that particular area of the business and take that on actively.
That's all very cool, man. I really like what you say. So now, with what you're doing with Chorus, what's next for you? Specifically with Chorus?
I mean, there's lots. What's next across the board is a lot, but with Chorus, I think I'm excited about building our three main divisions. And so my theme for next year is collaborative learning. So what I would like to do is build within each of those teams, the rental side, the sexual title management side, and the sales, building strong knowledge and expertise within each of those teams. So that's what I'm excited about. In the past, I would have had strong growth goals and strong vision goals, and I'm not saying that's not there, but I think for now, with the market that we're in, if I'm just excited to build the leadership within a certain team, the expertise within a certain team, like the teamwork and the collaboration within another team, those are the kind of things I'm focusing on, I think, for the next 6 months.
So it goes back to people.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, and this is maybe this is quite a recent revelation for me, is I'm learning to kind of be less, because I want to help everyone, so I was actively helping everyone with action. Now I'm basically saying I want to help you by helping you be more independent. So I can't build the business by me knowing everything, but if I can build the business by saying my 2 strong team members in Cape Town, my leaders in Cape Town, giving them more resources and building their character, building their expertise to be better leaders, it means they can grow the business without me being around. Those are the kind of things I'm trying to do. With all the sales agents we're taking on, my main thing is to build their skill level that they don't need me from a skills level perspective. They can actually just get on with the job, and then there's 10 of me. You know?
You multiplying
Yeah,
yourself.
basically, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what you talking about is being the ultimate leader, because that's what Pam Golden is. That's what the founder of Rawson is. And you told me a story about them. You said they're quite different. How are they different? Those
Yeah,
two
that's super
people?
interesting because they're a little bit closer to my generation than probably a lot of your audience.
Okay.
So I know I met Bill Rawson on the Institute of Estate Agents.
Okay.
I was a fellow director with him, and so I got to know him very well, a bit as a mentor. And I'm now very good friends with his son, actually.
Okay.
And Bill is just an amazing guy. When you meet with him, you kind of feel like $1 million when you leave him. But if you see him in a social setting, he's very much on his own.
Wow.
He's an introvert, complete introvert. So it's very interesting. But we speak to
Hey,
Pam Golding, and I met Pam Golding at an Institute of Estate Agents event. And you talk to her, you feel like you're like the only person that exists. And she's got this aura, like a Mandela aura about her. She's charismatic, she's incredible, just personality and force of nature. Yeah. And in fact, my grandparents actually bought a house from when she was an estate agent in the early 80s, just as a pure estate agent. Phenomenal salesperson, charismatic, highly professional. And she built a business by pure personality or force of nature.
Wow.
Whereas Bill Rawson has built his business through a very different personality, very different temperament, completely different person. And that really helped me to say that I don't need to be a Pam Golding or Bill Rawson. I must just be more of myself. Because I'm a bit more like Bill Rawson actually, but I'm definitely not a Pam Golding with charisma and that kind of thing. And yet, because one feels a bit of pressure that I need to be like Pam Golding to be successful like her. You don't have to be like that.
I really love that message. I think for me, that's the biggest takeaway from the conversation so far. So the moral of the story is just that be yourself.
Yeah.
In real estate, you will make it. Because mostly I feel like sometimes people are getting an overdose of tips on how to be charismatic, be out there and whatnot. But as you said with Bill Rawson, he totally destroyed that.
Yeah, no, totally. And typically, who's running, if that was modern times, Pam Golding will probably have the podcasts and the video and the TV programs, whereas Bill Rawson is not like that. So you think that all the real estate successful people are like the Pam Goldings because they got the podcast, and it's the same for nowadays. I look at sometimes cynically, I look at the guys that are running podcasts, and I'm not talking about just yourself. I'm talking about the guys that have a profile, and kudos to them. They're wonderful, but I'm not seeing any physical, material success more with them than I'm seeing with the guys that don't have the podcast. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes the guys without the podcast are doing as successfully. I know one of my landlords, he started with one property on a student rental 20 years ago. He's now got 3 or 4 billion under management.
Really?
Exactly. You don't know who he is.
Wait, 3 billion of value?
Yes. You don't know who he is. He walks around with, he's like an Afrikaner guy. He walks around in a shorts and t-shirt. You walk past him in the passage, in the shop, you would think, who's this hobo? This Afrikaans guy. But he won't have a podcast. He doesn't care stuff about that. But he's literally got a big portfolio in America now. So there's plenty of these folk that you don't know about that are doing really well and got a particular kind of personality.
So how does he manage such a huge portfolio?
First of all, he's one of the most intelligent people I know. He's very driven. Some of his ethics I'm not quite sure that I would necessarily agree with, but he's just determined. Just get on with it. Action-oriented. Just got on with it.
But David, how practical is it, like, to manage such a portfolio? What systems do you even use?
Well, I mean, his commercial portfolio, he built up his own business.
Okay.
So he's got his own operator. He's got a very strong operator, and he kind of, what's the word? He chose this guy specifically to run that portfolio. In fact, he originally wanted me to do it, and I said I'm not interested. And then on the residential side, he originally had outsourced to ourselves when it got too big, and then he got out of residential. So he focuses on only what he's good at. He's only in industrial and commercial, and he's got rid of all his residential because for him it was too messy, and he wasn't going to succeed at it. But he's brilliant at the commercial side of things and industrial. And your management of those units is not as intensive as residential.
Wait, what? Really? So you're saying commercial is easy to manage than residential?
Well, it's different. So it's not as itty bitty. So
Yeah.
let's say I've got a warehouse which is pulling in 200,000 rand a month turnover.
Okay.
That's one warehouse with one client. So if I got residential of 200,000 rand, it's probably 20, 30 units I'm managing for residential. So your intensity of residential management is much more than a commercial management.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. I get it. I get it. So why do you decide to niche with the residential and not go into commercial?
I've been trying to get into commercial, but I realized I started in residential, and that's where my strength is. And you would think management in different niches are the same, but it's actually the nuance is quite different. So that's why I'm not scared about the commercial guys wanting to get into residential. Because I say, well, they're not going to take phone calls at 7 o'clock at night like I do.
Yes.
But
They're not used to it.
They're not used to it. They're not going to take it. They're going to say, call me on Monday morning and say, dude, well, see in the WhatsApp. I get at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. So, so it is a very different. So I'm in residential, and I realized I'm good at it. There wasn't a particular. If I had to choose again, I don't know what I would choose. But I ended up being good at residential, and I tried to get into commercial, and I've actually stepped out of it because I just wasn't good at it. We were acceptable. We just weren't great.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm not going to be in niches or in markets that I don't believe I can be number 1 or 2 in. I'm not saying I am number 1 or 2 at the moment, but I want to at least have the potential. And so we're like in Cape Town, I was operating, we moved ourselves in Cape Town for many years, because if Pam Golding were to open up a rental business next to mine, I would outcompete Pam Golding on rentals. But on the sales business, I couldn't outcompete her business. And so that's why I moved out of sales in those days.
Okay.
But I'm obviously back into it now because I do believe we can compete in certain areas. But yeah, in what area can I compete in, and I operate in those markets only.
Oh wow, hectic, man. Because I'm interested in this guy. How does he manage the whole thing? Do you think it was a wise decision for him to diversify in America instead of diversifying in Africa?
Look, he's an intelligent guy. If he felt he could get more return there, then he would do it. So every investor I've realized with all my landlords have different strategies, have different niches, different strengths, and they must operate in those strengths. So I've got some landlords, for example, that are in low-end residential. I've got some landlords that are more the middle market residential. In fact, one of my landlords in Cape Town has gone into the upper end.
Okay.
So what are your niches? Where do you feel comfortable with? And where do you, so it's very much horses for courses. Where should you be? And I can't talk for this landlord. I don't know what his strategy was.
No, I see what you mean. I guess I'm happy to hear that it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. Yeah.
But now, what I want to know is, do you think it's possible to hit billions and billions in residential as a landlord?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you need to get into the listed space. Induplace and these kind of guys are growing into that. Look, one doesn't need to. Why should one grow into a 1 billion rand residential portfolio? I mean, it's possible. And then there's portfolios in America that are 100,000 units. But it becomes an institution. So as an individual landlord, I got one landlord in Cape Town as a family business. They got 900 units under management, and that's run by the landlord and his daughter and 2 assistants, and then they outsource the management. So that is very possible. And that's probably 400-500 million rand portfolio. So that maybe 600 million. It's probably worth it. Worth that. So it is possible. But not everyone's going to achieve that.
So wait, you're saying 900 units go around 6 million?
600 million.
Or 600 million for 900 units?
Give or take. I think if the portfolio is going through a rough time at the moment, we've just taken on some of it, but it's probably ultimately worth 700-800 million. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, from what you're saying, if I get you right, these people end up becoming investors more than real estate managers, because they they use the capital, and then they get managers to take care of the properties.
Very often they're using their own team to manage it, so they have a separate management business, which they own as well, which then manages their portfolio for them. Bear in mind, when they own those portfolios, it's typically done with other investors. So the asset ownership is done with, say, multiple investors with different entities, and then they have a management company which manages all those properties.
Okay. Do you believe in diversifying your portfolio, even if it's just your cash? Like you know how asset managers do? They buy physical real estate, then they'll buy stocks and on bonds and stuff like that. Do you believe in such thing, or you just want to put your money in real estate?
Well, it depends on season you're in. So I think the answer is depends. So I think the Rich Dad Poor Dad would talk about specialization. If you want to have a defensive thing where you want to protect your capital, well, then probably diversification is a good strategy.
Oh.
If you want to grow quickly, then for me, specialization is key. So that's why with our business, we started as a very general estate agency in Cape Town many years ago. We then focused only on residential and increasingly only on a certain type of residential with certain kind of clients. We got really good at that. From that strength, we can then diversify again. So my very limited non-academic strategy is do whatever it takes, use a shotgun approach in the beginning, see what works for you, and then focus 100% on that.
Okay.
Until you're really, really strong at it. Are you the best at it on that particular niche? Off that strong base, you can then start diversifying again.
Okay. Then eventually grow bit by bit.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's worthwhile to say, if I want to be a really good sexual title management agency, a really good residential property manager, a really good sales agency, if I'm doing that from day one, it's going to be quite difficult to compete in all those three markets. So
Yeah,
what I did
we're
only
overwhelmed.
now, so now that we grew and now very strong in residential, I knew I could do that in my sleep. I'm now added on the sexual title management. We can almost do that in our sleep now, and now I'm adding on the sales side back again. And become really good at that. And then I'm building systems and people in each of those business units where there's specialization. But in the beginning, to do that from day one is quite a challenge.
Hectic, man. You know what I just thought of? With what you just said, it made me think, what are your KPIs in terms of a successful real estate mogul? Because I know the youth these days, for them, $1 billion is the thing. You know, when they make $1 billion, that's the key objective that they want, you know.
Yeah.
So in terms of success, apart from portfolios are way. In terms of success, what tells you that you've achieved success in the industry?
Look, I mean, for me, I don't really care so much about the numbers, eh? I mean, you know, I'd rather have less assets and be married than have a big business portfolio. So I know this is not really answering your question directly, but for me, there's many of these so-called wealthy people that we know about that are in the press that I don't have a very strong opinion about, because I don't think they're successful. They can't keep a marriage together. You know, their children don't like them. So, you know, what about the numbers? So for me, are my kids still liking me? And is my wife still married? And if it means I'm a little poorer, well, then so be it. But from an asset perspective, how big is, I mean, I've got an agent friend of mine who's got a little agency of him and 2 agents. He's doing phenomenally well. Cash flow wise, he's doing phenomenally well. He's got a little niche. He can go surf. He's in Cape Town. He can go surfing whenever he wants to. His level of success is he's got the flexibility. He's maybe not earning as much as he would like, or ideally like, but he's got the flexibility. He's got systems. He can go surfing when the surf's up. Is that success? You know what I'm saying? Is that I can? I've got choices. So maybe I've got a bigger portfolio, but I've got less choices. I might be slave to my portfolio. Maybe I've got a 100-unit portfolio, but then I've got freedom in life. So I think to just put a number on it from a real estate mogul perspective, I think one has to put it in context.
I see what you mean.
In part of the other areas of one's life.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's hectic. In the same breath with what you just said, and going back to the low-key billionaire, I had one of my peers approach me. He asked me, yo, Art, how can I be very successful and rich and keep it low-key? And I looked at him, I was like, that's a good question. I'm going to ask my guest to answer it, because I can't answer it for you.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, profile comes because of, sometimes you can't help but having a profile. But I mean, there's many successful people that no one knows about. So just do your thing.
You reckon?
Do your thing. You don't have to put everything on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. Just put nothing on there. be off social media, and then no one knows about you. That's great. As long as your clients know about you. And so certain kind of industries, for example, you need the general population to know about you because your product is relating to the general population. But on a commercial environment, if I've got a few real estate, if I've got a few shopping centers, I don't need anyone to know about me. The clicks and pick and pays and the key people in those companies need to know about me.
Oh, yes.
No one else needs to know about me. So you don't have to build a profile.
Okay. So focus on those who need to know you.
Yes.
Wow, David. So now, with you, what's next in general for you now?
Yeah, look, we've got to move to Cape Town, which we just felt called to be back in Cape Town. I know that sounds a bit rich to say, but we love Joburg. It's quite a heavy thing to transition cities again. It's not an easy decision. And then once we settled in Cape Town, then I think I'm going to focus on, I think a couple of areas of my life is to focus on my family. Hopefully we can have a slightly easier rhythm in Joburg, so in Cape Town than Joburg. The second thing is I'd like to just get the business profitable and to make sure that the team is developing nicely with a little bit more independent without me again. Personally, I would like to, I'm busy thinking about a new book called Compassionate Performance. So I do want to write a new book. And then I want to get into some running projects again in the mountains in Cape Town. So there's some longer events I want to do. I want to maybe do the Cape Town Ultra Trail, Cape Town 100K next year. And so I do want to spend a lot of time in the mountain. So that's the simple, those are the simple areas. But I think I would like to, and there are certain things like getting into coaching, getting into entrepreneurial development. I'm quite keen to get into that as well.
Okay, would you say there's a gap in the market for an expert landlord commercial property version?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but I mean, it's a much smaller market. Residential, there's hundreds and thousands of private landlords that are managing their own property. In the commercial side, there's a much smaller market for that.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's, I just think the market's a lot smaller for it. I'm sure it's relevant,
Okay.
but yeah. The publisher wants to see, I mean, the publisher, I managed to fortunately get a publisher for this book in the country, but the average publisher wants to know what's the size of the market, and I think the commercial private landlord is fairly small in South Africa. I'm not saying it's not a market, but it's not really my space. So I'll gladly support someone else who wants to write a book.
Yeah, I see what you say. So now, I decided not to speak about the book and get into your story because I've learned that there's a lot of YouTube videos and content out there about the book, but I've realized that there's not a lot of content about you.
Yeah.
Because I got to know about you first from the book, then I got to know your work and what you've done. So, guys, please forgive me if we didn't go into detail into the book, but I promise you, go online, you'll get a lot of videos and summaries about the book. And then you'll learn about the book. It is a dope book, very, very dope. You'll learn a lot. My favorite chapter is chapter 17. Even the opening chapter is very relevant for your mindset and knowing who you are, where you are, what you're doing. So guys, please understand why we didn't go into depth about the book. That's the reason. So in closing, how can people get the book?
They can contact myself, David at chorusproperty.co.za, and then I'll give them my bank account, and then I'll send them the book. At Exclusive Books,
Okay.
Take a Lot online. I think loot.co.za has it as well online.
It does.
And you can get it a Kindle version as well on Amazon.
Okay, nice, man. Can I get my version signed?
Of course,
please?
definitely. Let's see if I got a pen here.
So, your new book, have you started on it?
I've got some ideas. I'm still trying to find a gap to be able to spend so many hours in it. But I'm slowly but surely putting an argument together on the message. Because writing a book, you first of all have to know what is your message. So, like a third of the time is actually getting the message and framework of the book together. A third of the time is writing it, and a third of the time is editing. So the writing is only like, in my view, a third of it. But I'm still in the planning stages, but I'm slowly but surely putting an argument together. So yeah.
That's very nice, man. The Expert Landlord was very relevant and very valuable, especially for a young man like me. I really loved it. I didn't know a lot about the tech. You introduced me to a lot of tech. Thank you for that. I hope the next book, man, becomes powerful and it reaches a lot of people the way the Expert Landlord reached me, man. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the end of the show, and you know at the end of the show you always get a huge, beautiful, big bonus. So we have David to give you the special, big, beautiful bonus. There we go.
So guys, so what one tip would be, just keep learning. Now, so where do you start with that? You start by subscribing to the show. Now, Art didn't tell me that, but Art's told me about the great interviews that he's doing and the work that he's doing within this program. And this is a fantastic starting point, because what he's doing, he's interviewing great people. And through that, that's one action you can do, is go to a channel, which is this one, to learn as much as you can, right? Art is then going to refer you to other resources. So I'm saying, number one, learn as much as possible. How are you going to learn? Start by subscribing to this channel. Listen and learn to as much as you can. Art is then going to start referring you to other books and resources and podcasts and other resources, and then go down those channels. Over a period of time, it will snowball into a learning program for yourself. I wish you all the very best in your real estate journey.
Thank you, everyone. This is dope. Thank you. Bye.